you don't get the butt you want by sitting on it. How about that one? And Delmar, let's rip this Band-Aid off. I don't want to talk about this because I feel like it's just a personal attack towards me only in this group. But let's talk about your amazing weight loss success and talk about how you used to be a fatty like me and now you're just a dapper Dan in South Carolina with her ripping abs, and all you did was just drink, essential oils and fish oil, right? That's all you did, right? So tell us how
the whole story. I quit eating Chick-fil-A.
Don't you dare.
I'm just
Stop.
kidding. That was not an
Del.
attack. I will say, I think everyone on the show right now has had Chick-fil-A, right? Yeah, I think so.
We're actively sponsored by them.
Like literally eating it as we speak. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, a lot to get into, but back about 8 or 9 years ago now, I weighed 300 pounds. And for my build as a 5 foot 10-inch guy, not too big, endomorph, that just equals being fat. That's all it is. Well, I went through a crisis in my own personal life that maybe we can get through later. I think that'd be a good conversation for another day for all of us. But in that feeling of losing control, I found I was able to control what I ate. And I actually went to a conference, and believe it or not, it was Mark Driscoll was speaking at New Spring here in South Carolina. So I was like, ooh, I'm going to go. It was Mark Driscoll, Andy Stanley, Judas Smith, Perry Noble. It was like the Woodstock of preaching. So I went down there.
Ecumenical heresy conference were you at?
I mean, at the time, this was like 2000, this is 10 years ago. So 2010, 29, that was like Woodstock back then, with those guys.
The lamest Woodstock ever.
Yeah. But I remember Mark Driscoll, I want to say it was him. He said this thing and it started to get under my skin a little. He was saying, how can I lead others if you can't lead yourself? And I remember being, pretty overweight. And then one day came up and I went to Dollar General and purchased an entire long sleeve of Kit Kats. And I crushed them. I was walking around. I was like, well, at least I'm walking. And then all of a sudden it hit me. I know, right? That's like going to the...
It's such a fat guy thought. It's like, hey,
it is.
Got my steps in.
I know right now there are people listening to this podcast. You crushed Chinese buffet and went home and ate an apple to justify it. I know because I've done that. But I remember just feeling miserable and feeling I've lost control of every area of my life. And then all of a sudden just saying, hey, listen, this has to stop. I'll start dieting tomorrow. And then a shift went in my head. I was like, no, I'm going to do it now. And I started, and we can go into all this other stuff at a different time if it's meaningful. But I lost over 100 pounds at that time doing Weight Watchers on my own. I lived in a little tiny town. There was no Weight Watchers in the town, but I figured out how to do it. I did that. And then the last 30, I lost just through counting calories and then going to the gym. Now, all that to say, when I came to the church I'm at now, I felt pretty good physique, but then change happened. Right. I moved to a bigger church with a more established culture, kind of what we're going to talk about in a minute. And it was an established culture of we're going to have staff meeting and we're going to have fried chicken, meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and even the green bean. We're going to throw a whole stick of butter in it. I witnessed that happening. OK, I'm just saying like that's the culture I found myself in. And it's no blame on them. It's me because I didn't have boundaries in my life because I controlled my life when I lived in a different place. And then I got married. So you throw that in there, then you have kids and you throw all of these changes in the mix. And I'm just going to be honest with you. If we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, I've noticed over the last year that has been becoming me again. Because I have put on a substantial amount of weight. And I think for me, I've always felt that kind of sting. One of my greatest wounds from middle school was a guy standing up in computer class, pointing at me and then pointing at the girl I had a crush on that she didn't know and says, she will never date you because you are fat. And
wow.
And I was like 11 when he did that. Wow. And in some really sad places, I've been running from my 11-year-old version of myself for, all these years. But I think as I get back in here, I talked to Tim this week because I look at him every single week on this Zoom, and I sit
next to him. It's awful.
I know. And I'm like, but see, here's the thing that frustrates me. Like that physique, every one of you guys could have that, because I've been there. I've been to the mountaintop, then I fell down very poorly. Okay. but one of the things I'm doing in my own personal life to try to get back to where I need to be physically, spiritually, is I need to put some boundaries in my life to create some spaces where I can be healthy again, because I know that I can. But it's just going to require a major intrusion upon how I live every day. So I wanted to bring that up. See if any of y'all have had any like experiences with that. There again, I think one of the frustrating things is it's like some people have struggled with it their whole life. Some people struggle with it, got fit, and then fell back out of it, which I think can even be more miserable, because now you have the guilt and shame of knowing I could do it. And then you have those who are just built athletically, and they have their own set of struggles when it comes to being healthy. But I didn't know if you had any things that you have in your place to even begin this journey of balancing your health and really just leading yourself.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic, because we can preach about spiritual disciplines all day long, but when it comes to disciplining ourselves physically, we seem not to put a lot of stock in that, which is just really bizarre in my mind, because I've noticed that me disciplining myself physically has actually helped spiritually. Because one of the rules I have in my own life is I don't lift a weight if I have not spent time in the Word today. So I will not let myself work out physically if I have not spent some time with the Lord spiritually. So my journey started about 2 years ago, 2018, actually 2 years ago, this to me. And she said, "Hey, what do you think about working out on a regular basis and eating a little better?" And I said, "I will take your physical challenge on, sis, if you take my spiritual challenge on." And my challenge to her at that time was to start a daily reading plan, to get plugged into a local church, and to join a home group. So we challenged each other. She accepted, I accepted. And I mean, we were texting last night, and I tell her every few weeks how much that challenge has changed my life. I work out 6 or 7 days a week, and I actually enjoy doing it, which is just really weird, because I was
I think I was going to say there needs to be some clarity, because for anyone who's gone through the health journey, most people who are on the first side of it, when they hear the word working out, that sounds like a chalkboard and fingernails. Like, what would I even go to a gym 6 days a week to do?
I have not stepped foot in a gym in probably 4 years. So all of my exercising happens at home, in my garage, or in my living room. So for me, it's 3 sets of dumbbells, light, medium, and heavy, and I follow Beachbody On Demand, which is it's basically the Netflix of working out, and it's got a bunch of programs on there. So my go-to program that Del and I are going to be knocking out together real soon is Body Beast by this guy named Sigi, who talks a little bit like Arnold. I seriously, I hear his voice like when I'm sleeping sometimes. It's scary.
Body Beast is insane. Like when I did Body Beast, by the time I got to the end of it, it was like I didn't even know that I could even do this. But I think one of the things that I wanted to ask is, why do you think that it's so easy in pastoral ministry for us to not really lean into this, aside from the obvious of so many of us are overweight? We don't want to go there because there's a level of shame involved in that. Why do you think we don't go there as much as maybe even we should?
I'll jump into this one, because I in a lot of ways, I feel like my middle school and high school experience was completely the opposite. You know, I was the first one to have my shirt off in PE class. But what they say about a skinny kid with abs doesn't count. But I played competitive soccer through my freshman year of college when I got hurt, and then I was small and slow, which is not a good combination. And then I hit about 25, and the metabolism just hit, and it was, oh, okay, I can't eat at McDonald's 3 times a day, do one sit up, and look the way that I used to. And that took a whole lot of getting used to, and it's still taking getting used to, because I walk by a mirror sometimes and I cry. But as we've talked about on this podcast before, the way that I grew up, my parents met in freshman speech class at Bob Jones University. Left to my own devices, the legalism can creep in really, really hard in my life. And it's really easy to tell myself, no, I'm not disciplined in this way, and forcing myself to be disciplined in that way is a different kind of legalism. And maybe as a guy who's well on my way to 300 pounds, the way that I tell myself that it's own card of no, there's a difference between being self-disciplined and then saying that everybody has to be doing things the same exact way. Yes, my doctor says this. Yes, my pants say this when I try to button them, but I rebuke you both because I have freedom in Christ past the queso.
I find like for me, I would say I'm not a naturally self-disciplined person in any area. It all comes down to interest for me, and I tend to be more creative, big thought type stuff. And so like, I really have to try and stay on task with things, because otherwise I will, what do they call it? Like, creative. There's a name for it. It's like, what is it called when you don't do something you should do? You put it off. Procrastination. There's like, you can like creatively procrastinate as a pastor and do all kinds of little things. Especially, I feel like, especially in a smaller church that's an older church with an older building, like there's a million little, and I'm handy, so there's a million little projects I can like justify in my mind, like, oh, I could go do that. But so I have to try and stay on task. And when it comes to exercise, I mean, it never used to be an issue for me. And it's almost like I'm having to just grapple with the reality of like 35 is not the same as 22. And, I used to be fairly athletic, which, I'm pretty coordinated and stuff. So maybe I could be again, but it's just never been something that I've had to try at, so it's hard to think that now I'm going to have to do this long, hard road. That's probably, longer than a 6-month, year-long journey to get to where I want to be. Cause I'm definitely overweight, like way overweight. But I also think there's a like a culture among pastors where like food is kind of like a free pass, like we kid around about the best barbecue place and let's go eat here and let's do that. And then I do think there's just the danger of like small church life of potlucks all the time. And that's how people show their love for you. And so you just gotta, it's a hard one. It's a really hard one, I think.
I think like one thing I'm getting from for sure from Andrew and Jeff is the same as me, is like when I was in high school, I played football, and like Andrew, like I played it my freshman year of college, and doing sports and conditioning and athletics were not like a chore to me. It was like fun. And so therefore like I was a big guy. I was an offensive lineman, but I was in shape. And it never like was a thing I had to think about, like, I got to do this. Otherwise I'm going to be sick. So therefore, like, it was just like, I was always like in good shape or whatever. And I think like after football ended, there was like a period of 5 or 6 years where like, I just thought I was still that same person. Like, I didn't think like, I was like on any given moment, if someone's like, let's have a foot race, I'm like, I still thought I could probably beat that guy. like that's like well into my 30s. And there's moments where I'm just now getting to the point where I'm thinking, I need to think through the physical activity because I might break something. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need to think through, like, I remember when I was a kid, I would jump off like a 6-foot platform into the ground and think to myself, like, this is adventurous, doing Steve-O type of things where like I would like get in a shopping cart and just throw them. Like, I thought that was funny. Now every time I think of like jumping off a 3-foot thing, I'm like, my knees might buckle. Like, like I think about my joints and stuff like that. And so for me, man, I think so much is like pretending I'm still the guy from like 15 years ago is still an active issue that I need to like fight against, and just come to the grips that like my hairline made that true. That wasn't that wasn't the case years ago. So your body, the rest of your body needs to catch up with what you really are. I think though, like, we talk about having self-discipline and being mindful of that. And I think when it comes to like, we live in a time right now where the prototypical pastor, culturally, not like biblically, but culturally, are like these really handsome guys, right? Like it's kind of shifted from.
That's
like,
how I got the job. Yes.
But like, I mean, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm saying like there was a time where like the prototypical pastor was more of what he was espousing and what he was thinking and what he was saying. Now it's very much like a look. Like, does he look the part? I'm not saying this is great. I'm not saying this is good. But when we look at like there's a reason why Rick Warren was the guy 20 years ago, and now like the guy is like Chad
Craig
Veach.
Groeschel, baby.
Yeah, freaking mini Hulk, right? Like you have all these dudes who are like literally actively caring about their appearance and stuff like that. With that being said, like there is this kind of like insecurities I have where I could think, as much as I can like espouse God's word and have like be careful with my theology, do all the stuff that like Timothy talks about in the book of Timothy, that like people might say, why should I take him seriously? Look how he doesn't care about his weight. You know what I'm saying? And so that insecurity does bubble up. And I try to see that as a conviction from the Spirit saying, I need to be more mindful of myself, not so much I need to try to look apart, because that's not what's accurate. But it does make me think about this. A lot of people give a lot of crap to Rick Warren for the Daniel plan. And yeah, that's a little gimmicky and a little whatever. But like, God bless the guy who says we need to be healthy physically, and I'm going to write a book and have like exercise stuff so that people can come to church and then afterwards walk on the trail, do a couple exercise things, and let me give you some kind of like dieting plan. Like, I never hear that. And I when I first heard about the Daniel plan, I used to be like, okay, Rick, you need another book. But then I'm thinking to myself, like, this is him shepherding his people well by caring about their actual physical health. And I think like there's something, like for almost all of us in youth ministry, being fat was kind of like the gimmick to get you the credit with the kids. Like, hey, he's going to bring pizza, so it's a good thing, right? There's a point where it's like, man, I need to really check my health. Like you guys, I'm talking to my doctors. I'm on certain medications. It's actually helping me think through of like what I'm eating and stuff like that. But maybe I need to get a subscription to this Beachbody stuff.
You just dumped so much like content right in front of here that I feel like we could spend an entire podcast just mulling through. A couple things that I hear here is one thing that we have to be certain of is when it comes to being healthy, motivation is so key. Like not that you're being motivated because I need to look good. I actually had someone compare me to another pastor who looked good the other day, and they said, well, he doesn't even have to try to fit in because he looks good. And I'll be honest, man, that hurt me to my core.
Hey, Delmar, though, you have to admit, this is an observation.
Go ahead.
There are Christian speakers, influencers. They're not pastors, but they're like Christian voices who have a platform only because they're handsome. Only because they're good looking.
Absolutely.
There's some guys.
So no, you're right.
Guys,
that's why we. No, but that's why we need to say it. Like if your motivation is to become a Christian speaker or whatever, that can't be it. It has to be because I need discipline in my life, and it can't be just because it's a fad. I mean, I hate to just poo-poo on it, but I know the pastors who've been on the youth pastor weight diet for 10 years and they're still morbidly obese. It's like at some point, this thing is a gimmick. It's not authentic and it's not producing what you're trying to produce. And I think another very practical thing that I would just encourage pastors with is when you reference, I know pastors who are vulnerable on stage and they do reference their weight on stage. I think if you've never gone there, it's okay to take the space to go there and say, I've got a thorn in my side. But when you revisit it every week, it does begin to come like, well, that's the thing I'm allowing, that's just our pastor. He's big, he's working on it. But like, instead of being like, there it is, and now let me see me moving away from that. And I think what it really comes down to, if we're going to you want to get to the bottom line of it, I think we have a lot of pastors who are unwilling to admit that they're addicts.
Oh yeah, it's totally like an acceptable vice.
Yeah,
within
it is
within Christianity, and I think especially among.
If you're listening to this, the biggest thing that I ever did, to start my weight loss journey at all, was I did go to a couple Weight Watchers classes. It was all women and me, right? But I realized after like my first or second one, Weight Watchers was simply AA for food people. That's all it is. And what I realize is, Del, the real thing I need is just to admit that I'm an addict. Now, the bad thing is the thing that I'm addicted to is also the thing I got to have to live, food, but there are certain things that trigger it more. And for me, like, if anyone asks, like, I would consider myself an addict in a negative way towards certain types of food. And I just can't be around them. That was huge for me. And the other thing I think that I've realized in my own life is one of the reasons that I run to that addiction or run to the food, and this not just food, but with a lot of stuff, is it's actually a symptom that there are other things in our life that we're not wanting to step into. Because, like, how many times is there a problem over here and we need to go to the problem, but it's much easier just to go to like some Chick-fil-A or Popeyes or whatever, because it's easier, right? So at our church, we call that triangling out to something, because it's like you're supposed to be addressing your issues and you're triangling out. So to me, I think right now, one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up while we're in this season of the podcast is because everyone's in change right now. Like for me, it started when I moved here, but now it's COVID. Everyone's in change. And I think right now is the opportunity for us to kind of lean in together and say, okay, but that's not an excuse. Like, and Pastor, if you've noticed over the last 6-8 months, like, you've let yourself go, like, this is a call to, return, because I think sometimes the hardest thing ever for me to do in the last year, I'm not even going to lie, this is probably the hardest thing ever I've done. And I freaking left my old job, okay, and came here. The hardest thing I've done was this morning at 9 a.m. when I stepped on my scale.
Oof. Yeah.
Ouch.
I did not want to do it. And I was like, I'll just guess my number. But then I'm like, no, Tim's going to be looking at this app I have on my phone because he's holding me accountable. And if I don't step on that scale today, and I was going to just put some numbers in. And then I thought to myself, why? Why am I avoiding the scale? Oh, because I know there's a reality about me that I don't want to face. What's that reality about me that I want to face? I've gained weight. Okay, why have I gained weight? Because I ran to some comfort. Why have I run to some comfort? Because I'm in stress. What am I stressed about? There's change in my life. Who am I not running to? I'm not running to Jesus. Like, man, I had my quiet time on the scale this morning, But I think, like, if we really trace that, there's a lot of health to be found in it.
That's really good, Dale. I think what's really important too, that you think about this fitness journey and you just get this broad, like, oh my gosh, this is going to take 3 years, or how could I ever even, and it has to start somewhere. So even you stepping on the scale, or even you last week telling me, I haven't counted calories in a while. I'm going to start counting calories the week before I really get serious about my exercise. For me, it was sugary beverages. So I was a sweet tea addict. Like, I just flat out admit it. So the biggest thing in my life that I cut out immediately and dropped a lot of weight in just a couple of days was sweet tea. So I'm now, I drink a lot of seltzer water, and I allow myself a sugary beverage usually once a week or so, only when I'm out at a restaurant.
And he always yells at me for ordering Coke, and he calls me a fatty, and
because it's the easiest way to start on your fitness journey. I mean, if you can eliminate 200 calories from a beverage, do it. Like, for me, it's just, where are you going to start?
Yeah, I don't
and
think say never drink
goals?
your calories. I think that's
yeah, it's so silly. It's almost a waste.
So my lifetime fitness class,
I never follow.
Yeah. My lifetime fitness class in undergrad at a Christian college, it was, hey, let's learn all these Bible verses about losing weight. And
you did the Awana of fitness.
Exactly. I did Awana fitness for college credit, the joy of Christian college. But yeah, so it was if you eat after 8, you will gain weight, never drink your calories and that kind of stuff. And then let's somehow apply 1 Corinthians 10:31 to the size of your waist.
Wow.
And, but again, at the time, I was young and athletic with a very fast metabolism. And I thought nothing of it. At the time I was incredibly spiritually unhealthy.
Wow.
But physically, I had a 28-inch waist. Therefore, I was fine. I think, my little pushback on this would be, fitness has certainly become an idol for some as well. And
there's no doubt about that.
And I think for some people, not looking as chiseled as they want to look is a different kind of spiritual health than the opposite extreme. And more often than not, the case is, no, you're too fat. You have some control issues. You have some self-discipline issues. You need to do something about this. But there's also that very small percentage that I'm not in, but I use that small percentage to justify my Krispy Kreme habit to say, we can also go too far with this.
There's no doubt.
And if your physical health is more important than your spiritual health, that's an issue.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and let you know if you're kind of on the unhealthy side and you've never journeyed to health. I did. And I'm going to tell you now that I'm kind of falling from grace, so to speak, trying to get back there. If y'all know what a caged Calvinist is, right?
Never heard of it.
You never heard it, right? But there's also a caged fitness guy too. And oftentimes those are the guys who used to not be fit. And then they figured out how to lose weight. Why shouldn't you figure it out? Don't you even love yourself? Do you even care about your kids? You're going to die early. Oh my gosh, is sugar worth more than your family's security? Like, you find those people, and the only reason I know is because I had started to become one. And I think the last 5 years of my life has been the great humbling. So I will say that once you start down that road, I did it alone. That stunk. Like, I had no somebody speaking into me. So the idea of doing it with someone else in a regards of just accountability and also just keeping your heart in check with it, I think is so important. I think it's really important.
What are to kind of close this out and to give people some practical stuff? If anybody has anything, what are some practical apps, tools, things that you thought were beneficial on your weight loss journey that maybe someone else here could be like, hey, I want that?
I pay for Beachbody On Demand. It's $100 a year. And for me, that's skin in the game. When I pay for something, I feel like I better get my money's worth. So that's one of the reasons I continue to pay it. Otherwise, I have a little bit less skin in the game. There's another app that Dell and I are just getting started on. Dell, do you have the name of that?
Yeah, it's called My Macros Plus, and it looks like very well done. Like, I've been piddling around on it all day.
What's cool about it is you'll be able to do, you can count your own calories, macros, all that stuff, but there's a group aspect to it to where we can see each other's progress as well. So we can encourage each other. Hey, end of the day, Dell, you got 400 calories left. You need to eat something, buddy. That kind of stuff.
So if any of y'all do get it, friend me, Delmar Pete. That's just my username. Go ahead. I don't mind. So I think that's a really good app. And I think, man, Tim, what you said is true. Buy something. I know that sounds so like consumeristic, but buy something. For me, I like lifting weights. I love running. So I will go buy a nice pair of running shoes. And the way I'd rather purchase that than insulin, which I'm going to go to either one eventually, So it gets my skin in the game because I have a hard time throwing money away and let it sit in the corner. There's one saying though, I want to leave you, even if you don't purchase an app, if you don't buy a shoe or lift a weight, there is one saying that has been my North Star every time. And it's just this: nothing tastes as good as being healthy feels.
I agree.
You don't get the butt you want by sitting on it. How about that one?
Pretty good.
Right.
I like that.